So normally we should start in a few minutes because there are many people joining us, and maybe you hear clicks. Sorry for that. That's when people are joining. I am Grégoire Cabri from France, and I'm the chairman of the SMW, the Senior Management Worldwide, which is a very wide network of interim companies. And we are very happy to have the possibility to chat with you. For your information, this morning, almost 625 people have registered. So I don't know how many people will participate, but we are very proud and very happy because we have 35 countries which are registered. Many countries from Europe, also many countries from Middle East, some friends from Australia, and some friends from South America, North America. So altogether, a very important number of people. The idea of this morning is that we explain to you, sorry to say morning, because in some countries it's already night, and some other countries it's very early morning. Very happy to chat with you and to explain you what is interim management and what's the interest of having a view of international interim management. So I will give the speak to Charles Wilson, which is the presenter of this morning. The rule of the game is that you can ask questions. Charles will do an introduction and a presentation of our network and also of interim management at international level. And then I will monitor the questions. So I will check what questions are coming and I will try to do the best. But basically, what is important for you is to understand that in many questions and in many questions that you might have, we will say revert to your local partner, because in our job, there are many things that are linked to the local legislation, the local constraints, and that's what we will explain to you during this presentation. Charles, I think you will speak for half an hour, right?
Yes, half an hour, 40 minutes.
Okay, and then don't hesitate to raise the question, and I will select what seems to be the most important. If we cannot answer the question, then we will keep a track of this question and give you the opportunity to revert to our local partner of Senior Management Worldwide, so that they answer to you. Is the rule of the game clear for everybody? Put yourself on mute first, please. And Charles, I give you the word.
Grégoire, thank you. Morning to everybody. I will put my screen in presentation mode in a second so that you can easily see all of the slides. I just thought I would introduce myself first. So I'm Charles Wilson, and I am the UK partner of SMW. And in the UK, my company is well known in the marketplace. The UK is a very mature market for interim management. And as Grégoire has said, it's quite different across different countries around the world in terms of the market maturity for interim management. And we will touch on that again during the presentation. Just to reiterate what Grégoire said, and I will repeat it many times in the presentation, there will be things that are specific to interim management within the country that you work or countries that you work in because of the various labour laws. So please do reach out to your local partner of SMW within the countries that you work, and I will repeat that as we go through. But I will now ensure that I put my screen into presentation mode and we can get started. So thank you again for coming this morning, and it's really good to see you all and present this morning. So thank you. Let me just make going into presentation mode. Excellent. Hopefully you can see the first screen with a lovely picture of Grégoire and I, perhaps taken a few years ago. So we will go through the slides, essentially talking about what does it mean to be an interim manager, and why is it different to having a normal permanent role, a permanent career. This will be our program of today. So a little bit about SMW that you will see, the types of interim management assignment that you might find come up, a couple of case studies just to bring to life what interim management is like, and some of the work that we have done within SMW and our clients. A little understanding, if you like, of the difference between the sort of big consultancy firms. Some of them will be different in different countries, but in the UK, we have some global consultancy firms like PwC and Deloitte, McKinsey's, Boston Consulting Group, for example, which many of you will recognize those names. And what is the difference between that consultancy, interim management, and then the sort of contractor or lower level temporary market? And then importantly, what do you need to do in terms of setting up yourself as an interim manager? What should your approach to market be? And what are the considerations that you should think about if this is the right sort of career move for you going forward? And then, of course, at the end, and I think an important part, as Gregoire said, is through the presentation, please do put your questions as they come up into the chat section, and we will spend some time at the end just perhaps answering some of those questions if I haven't covered them within the presentation. So hopefully this morning will be informative, will give you a bit of an understanding of interim management, and I will be doing the presentation as if most of you don't really know what interim management is, or you haven't been an interim manager before. So if you have, hopefully this is just a refresh of what you know already. If this is very new to you, then hopefully it will be informative. So thank you. So interim management is definitely international, and it is a growing flexible resource and marketplace. Senior Management Worldwide has been around now for a number of years, and we are growing every year as a group of like-minded interim management businesses around the world, where we come together collectively to work with international and global clients, where essentially we help them in a particular country. To give you an example of that, it might be that I have a client within the UK. They have a subsidiary company in France, for example, and they ask me, Charles, can you find us an interim manager in France, please, to do this particular project? We would like a French person, a French speaker, somebody that lives locally to Paris, for example. In that circumstance, it is better for me and for my client if I speak to Gregoire, who is based in France, and his company, and we work together, that Gregoire satisfies the need and the requirement of that interim management opportunity within France. His company knows the market in France far better than I do from the UK, and he will be able to find a perfect candidate for that client in country within France. And of course, as we will repeat again, the understanding of the labour laws particular to that country. So this is why interim management came about, basically, is for us to work together to satisfy the needs of our clients on a global basis. You can see the countries, and I will obviously on the map, and here is a list as well. So these are the countries at the moment that SMW has a partner in. But what I'd like to say is also that we have worked beyond the countries that you see here, and we have worked further afield. The Middle East, for example, we now have a partner in Dubai, but we have also worked in other Middle Eastern countries. We've also worked in and have placed interim managers in Ireland, where we don't have a partner, but I worked with our Belgian partner who had a client in Ireland in the pharmaceutical manufacturing business, and we placed somebody in that country. So you can see we are very well placed as the largest interim management partnership of its kind, and the ability to work in different countries is very unique. The next slide really just is to give an understanding of the different types of interim management, because they work at different levels. For example, interim management essentially is a senior level temporary engagement of a flexible workforce. So this is not about hiring somebody on a permanent basis where you will be in an organization for the next 5, 10, 15 years. These are short-term specific needs, and the client essentially is buying the expertise of an individual. And this is not about, the one thing you should think about for interim management, you are being hired for the expertise that you have. So this is not about thinking, oh, I'd really, my career has been doing this, but I'd really like to go and do this. And I've never done that before, but it looks really interesting. For interim management, that's not really going to work. The client wants somebody who is a safe pair of hands, has done very similar roles in the past, whether it be, as an interim manager or indeed as a project within a permanent career, where they are buying that expertise and want to bring that into their organization, because normally it means they don't have somebody in their organization already who has the skills and the experience to be able to carry out that role. They don't have the availability of anybody to do it at that time, because everybody is full to capacity in terms of the resource, or they just don't have that skill set. So they really need to bring this person on board. And roles can be very much at the executive level. So it can be chief executive, it can be chief operating officer, a marketing director, a human resources director, for example. And that can be in the sense of, we need somebody at, let's say, for example, a finance director level candidate to work alongside our current chief finance officer to do a specific project. So that's bringing in, covering off that sort of program project management role. Or it could be, for example, and we all know this happens, let's say, for example, the chief finance officer of that particular organization has decided to leave, or they've been asked to leave the company. The next level down in the finance team is not capable of stepping up into that role. And they know when they go to market to do executive search, it could take 3 or 4 months to bring that person on board. And then they might have a 3 or 6 month notice period. So it could be 9 months before a new person on a permanent basis comes into that role. So what they need to do is bring in a professional, and this is professional guardianship or filling the gap fill, to come in and fulfill that level of role for a period of time, until such time as they've hired the permanent person. So that was, if you like, probably where interim management first started, that gap fill approach, or somebody on long-term sick leave, or somebody on maternity leave, for example, and they needed to bring somebody in to fill a particular gap. The market has now matured quite a lot in interim management, and in fact, that gap fill type approach only accounts for quite a small percentage of the number of interim managers that are hired by organizations. It tends now to be more specific projects, specialist skill sets that they don't have existing in the organization. And it's definitely now right across the different business functions. As I said before, We see interim management in human resources, in finance, in legal, in specific roles like director of manufacturing, for example, in accountancy, and obviously in program and project management or transformation and change. So a lot of times when interim management is being asked for by a particular client, it's because they are going through, as an organization or part of the organization is going through a period of change and transformation. And this is often where that interim manager is brought in for the expertise they have of being able to run with a project and drive it and make sure it happens. And this can be in very different scenarios. So it could be a company is in a turnaround situation, has been in financial difficulty. The board is no longer invested in the executive team, and they need to bring somebody in that will help them look at the organization, analyze the situation, and ideally turn the fortunes of that company around. So sometimes it's if you like, a sort of negative scenario as to why an interim manager has been brought in. Other times, actually, it's a more positive scenario in that a company is growing. It might be, for example, a small or medium-sized enterprise, and they are looking to grow from 100 million turnover to a 500 million turnover, and maybe in the future a billion revenue turnover. But they don't have anybody within the company, even at executive level, that has done that sort of thing before. So they will bring in an interim manager with specific skill sets in order to help the board understand how do you grow and how do you take the company into different markets in order to be able to achieve those company aims of growing from 100 million to, say, 500 million. So there are lots of different scenarios where interim management is utilized, and right across different business functions. And you will find when you speak to your local SMW partner that they may very well specialize in either a particular sector or particular business functions, or like I'm quite generalist and cover a number of different industry sectors and a number of different business functions. So it's definitely worth looking into and speaking to your SMW partner to work out, does interim management exist in the specialism that I have? And, who do I need to speak to in the market to ensure that I can put myself forward? And it's worth saying, when we looked at the different countries and the international element of interim management, that you in your career, you may have worked in different countries. For example, you may speak more than one language, and therefore you might have the opportunity to work on international assignments for specific clients. So again, if you have that background and that capability, it's also something to think about, that you could go and work in different countries in order to help a particular client in the situation that they are in. It's also worthwhile saying that interim management, and again, this is will be unique depending on the country that you are in. But interim management, certainly in the UK and for some of the other partners, is in both the private sector and also the government sectors. In the UK, the government sector is a very large user of interim management. So if you are interested in working within that space, absolutely speak to your partner about that. And there are absolutely specialist firms who deal with government sectors as well as the private sector. And sometimes, I have spoken to interim managers who have only ever worked in private sector companies generating revenue, etc., who have decided, actually, I would like to give something back, and I would like to bring about my skills and put them into something really worthwhile. And maybe that might be the charity sector or indeed the government sector itself. So that's just a little bit about the different types of roles that you might encounter. This slide really is just to give you an idea of some of the clients that we have worked with within the partnership of Senior Management Worldwide. And I'm just going to pick two to bring to life and talk to you about as case studies. One is Vialto Partners in the top of your screen, and the other is ProMedics, an Aspen company, which is at the bottom of your screen. I will start with ProMedics. So both of these, I should say that both of these examples are me placing an interim manager in the UK for a company that is based outside of the UK. So ProMedics, for example, Pam, who is our US American partner, works with Aspen, who is a medical devices business within the US. They are private equity backed as a company, and they acquired ProMedics in the UK. And the organization was going through a difficult time and needed the chief operating officer had left, and they needed somebody to come in who really understood the manufacturing market, to work with the managing director and really understand what was going wrong from the supply chain perspective, from a manufacturing perspective, and to help increase revenue and really get hold of the operations. So we put in an interim chief operating officer that I knew very well, that had worked in a number of different manufacturing organizations, but had very much done the type of thing that the client was looking for, had realigned operating models within the manufacturing operations, had helped grow revenue in other organizations, had motivated the teams. So he was placed within the organization, and actually, which sometimes we find, is the organization realized he was extremely good, and actually ended up making him the joint managing director for a period of time. And he ended up in that assignment for 12 months, so one year in the end. The initial contract was for 6 months, and then it was extended. And when he left, the organization was in a much better place, and the operations function of the manufacturing business was in a much better place, and he had helped ProMedics in the UK integrate much better with Aspen in the US. Vialto Partners as a different client, and this is one where I have an interim manager in the organization at the moment who I placed in there 1 month ago. Vialto Partners are a global mobilization organization. They were part of PwC, the big consulting firm. PwC decided to divest Vialto 15 months ago, and they are now private equity backed by a Canadian private equity firm. And so Brian in Canada phoned me and said, I have this new company, Vialto Partners. They are a multi-million-pound global business, but were in PwC. They've now been divested out and are trying to set themselves up basically as a new running company in their own right. From a human resources perspective, they are having real difficulty in pulling together their own identity, all of the policy and procedures and ways of working around the globe. and they need an HR director level interim manager to help them set up and integrate the EMEA region, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So 1 month ago, I placed a lady, Andrea, in that assignment, and she's already doing really good work, helping them to understand how to bring about and integrate this new business across EMEA. And in fact, already what has happened is that she needs additional interim managers to be placed, to be based out of either France and potentially Switzerland or the Netherlands. So other partners within Senior Management Worldwide are now also helping that client. So it just shows how we are able to globally and internationally help different clients. So 2 different examples there. One as a chief operating officer level and becoming the co-managing director for a period of time, and the other in human resources, both at senior level. And I think it's important for us to recognize actually that most of the work that we do in Senior Management Worldwide and as interim management is of the senior level. So for example, in HR, it wouldn't really be an HR advisor or an HR manager that we would be looking to place as an interim, because that's too lower level and more of a contracting or temporary engagement. Similarly, in finance, it wouldn't be a finance accountant or a finance manager that we would be placing, because they aren't senior enough really to do an interim management job. Interim management really tends to be, you are bringing your skill set and guiding the client using your experience to help them through whatever situation or period of change that they are in. So it's a very senior role, often adding to the strategy of an organization, but putting your hand up and being the person leading that. And I think this diagram sort of brings that to life a little bit, in that you have on the one axis the consultant market, so PwC, Deloitte, McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, tend to be, when they go into an organization, at a very senior level, but more advisory. So although they are moving into this market a little bit, the consultancy world tends to be, they go into an organization to advise that client about a particular scenario. They tend to work in their own, maybe interviewing members of the organization, but they tend to work in isolation and then will produce a report and say, this is what we think you should do, or here are your options, but they don't get involved in delivering. Interim managers, however, are often senior and also advisory, but will then be the person leading that change, and will guide the organization and work with people within the organization to deliver that change. So they will inherit teams of people that they've not worked with before, and that's a key part of that mindset, that capability of working with people that they've never worked with before, but hitting the ground running and getting up to speed very, very quickly. It's super important. And then the temporary contract worker market that I talked about tends to be at a lower level, where on a daily basis, they are told what they're going to be doing. You are in this project for 6 months, and this week you will be doing this. Next week, we want you to do this. So you are being guided as if you would if you were more of a junior or middle management in a permanent role in an organization. It is a similar status. Interim management tends to be much higher and more informative. So hopefully that gives a little bit of clarity. Now, the important bit, and probably for the last sort of 15 minutes of me talking at least, is how do you set up and approach the market? And again, this really is where I will be constantly saying it is unique to each country and client that you work with. So often we will be asked by a client to, we want somebody on a fixed term contract, or we want somebody that works through you as a provider, an interim management provider, or we want them to work through a limited company and we will pay you as the interim management provider and you will pay the interim manager. Or can we contract directly as a client with that limited company individual and we'll pay you your fee separately? So it is very, very unique to the client and the country that you work in because of the different labour laws. So in the UK, for example, we have a mixture of people working on a daily rate. So, for example, it might be £1,000 a day, and you only get paid for every day you work. If you have a holiday, if you are on a 9-month assignment and you are on holiday for 1 week, you don't get paid for that week. If you become ill and you need to take 2 days off sick, you don't get paid for those 2 days either. But that is how the market in the UK works, and it is charged accordingly. The other option is a fixed term contract where you are basically paid the same as if you were on a salaried role. So this role is £150,000 a year with all of the benefits, and you will get paid the equivalent of that on a monthly basis. So again, it is very, very different. It might be in the country that you work in, there is a monthly fee instead of a daily rate. And again, it's all about flexibility, having a range, and understanding what is my value to the market. I think that's really important. Think about the work that you've done in the past and what is my value to the market. And therefore, my view is that you have a range. You have a range in the bottom end of that range. So, for example, if you were on a daily rate, you would have a range of £800 to £1,000 a day, where £800 is your view. If you were under this rate, you would be devaluing your what you're bringing to the market. So you have a bottom range and a top range, and it is dependent on the role. What is the size of the role? What is the scope of the role? How big is the company? What is the challenge? And that will determine what rate you put into the market. Sometimes a client will say, this is our budget and we can't pay any more. And then you have a decision to make when you speak to your interim provider. What is also important is how you position yourself. You need to think of a unique selling point. You need to stand out. So what am I capable of? What value add, or what added value do I bring to the organization? And therefore, how do I position myself? Why am I going to be the right person to help in a particular scenario? That's really important. And then in terms of marketing, it's very much a multi-channel approach to market. So, and there are a number of different ways that you can do this. One thing we find often in the UK is personal contacts are very, very important. So these are people that you have worked with before. So your peers or somebody that was running the business or on the board, and they are now somewhere else. And you can go to them and say, I've decided to become an interim manager. You know what I'm capable of. Are there any opportunities in the organization or organizations that you work with where my set of skills could be really utilized for a short period of time? The reason why, and this can be old people that you've worked with, old clients that you've worked with, suppliers that you've worked with, or just personal contacts within your network, within the business world. And the reason why these are really important contacts is because you are known to them. They hopefully are already an advocate of what you are capable of doing. And therefore, it is less of a sales role of trying to sell yourself to them and an organization. They already know what you're capable of. So your personal contacts are really important. Interim service providers are also a great channel to market. And interim service providers are people like myself and the other members of Senior Management Worldwide, the other partners of Senior Management Worldwide in your country. So do reach out to them. They will give you an understanding of the marketplace in the country that you work in, the types of roles that they do, and whether they can help you. And the good thing about interim management and the way we work is we are very honest. Integrity and honesty is really important to us. So if we can't help you, we may know another competitor that can. For example, if you only really want to work in the government or charity space, and that interim provider in SMW doesn't look at that market or doesn't work in that market, they will say, please go and speak to this company. And that's really important. And we always suggest that you have, depending on the maturity of the market that you are in, but in the UK, I would always say to an interim manager coming into the market, you probably want to speak to about 5 interim providers to understand what the market's like and have a level of a good level of opportunity of interim management roles coming your way. But again, it will be different depending on the maturity of the market in your country. So please do speak to the Senior Management Worldwide provider in your country. In the UK, we and many other countries, we use LinkedIn a lot. And I know there are websites that are very similar, specific to people's countries. So LinkedIn is essentially a marketplace for people. And you can put on LinkedIn essentially something like your CV, your curriculum vitae, a profile of yourself, and you can highlight the fact that interim management is something that you want to do. This will allow people to see that on your profile and then be able to contact you to say, actually, your profile is really good. We have an interim assignment that we think would match your profile. Can we have a conversation? So again, it's another important channel to market. And then, of course, networking, doing things like this, going to business networking meetings and putting yourself forward as an interim manager. And then just in terms of interim management assignments themselves, we tend to work very quickly. So a client will come to us and say, we need an interim manager. It's got to the point where we're quite desperate now, and maybe we should have brought somebody in a few weeks ago or a month ago. Please, can you find us somebody very quickly? So unlike executive search for permanent roles, where it might take 3 months, we are normally looking at somewhere between a few days to 3 or 4 weeks, maybe, in order to find that client. Here are 5 people we think are really good for the job, for the assignment. They will then agree with us or take 3 of those and interview them and then start them in that role. And normally it is a matter of weeks rather than months before somebody is appointed to work in that role. The average length of assignment, certainly in the UK, and I know speaking to my partners, it's quite similar in different countries, is 7 or 8, 9 months, something like that. And it might be that your initial contract is 3 months, and then you have extensions, or you may just get a contract that's for 9 months and you work to that particular contract. So that just gives you an idea. It tends not to be less than 3 months, because again, that feels a bit more like consultancy rather than an operational interim management role. Obviously, the partners of SMW, please look on our website. There will be different market insights depending on where you are, again, in location. So obviously, in the UK and Europe, we've had Brexit. I won't dwell too much on that because it makes me feel sad. But Brexit, obviously, we've all gone through a global pandemic, recessions or increase in market activity the commercial markets versus private sector markets versus government sector markets, and of course taxation differences in different countries. So depending on what is happening in your country at any one time will result in a different use by clients of interim management. So again, speak to your local provider to understand what is the market like for us in our country at the moment for interim management, and what is impacting that. Key competencies required for interim managers. I think if you look at action-orientated, politically astute, strategic thinking, etc., and the ones there, they are fairly similar for most high-performing executives, but they are particularly important, I think, for interim managers, in that you hit the ground running. You don't get involved in the politics of the office, but you understand and that you are politically astute. You are thinking strategically all of the time. And of course, you are accepting of change, because most of the time your assignments will involve change and you will be the person driving that change. And you're always looking for opportunities to help the organization and continuous improvement. It's really important to note, though, that we are not here to encourage you to be interim managers, make you be interim managers. It has to be right for you. It involves lots of change management, specific projects. And if that's not how you like to work, then probably interim management isn't for you. But if that is how you like to work, then interim management could be a career option for you. You've also got to understand there will be times of financial uncertainty. You might do a 6-month assignment, and we always suggest about 6 weeks before your assignment is due to finish, go and speak to your interim providers again and your networks to try and line up the next assignment. But it might be that you end up with 1 month or 2 months where you are not in an interim assignment and therefore not earning income. So you have to be cognizant of this and feel comfortable with the fact that that might happen. Now, I have worked with lots and lots of interim managers who actually have had less time on holiday than when they were in a permanent role, because they ended up doing one assignment, next assignment, but they loved it. They really enjoyed that change and working with different organizations and, if you like, imparting the skills and experience that they can bring to bear. So understand there might be gaps between assignments. And of course, it has to be the right mindset for you. I think that's really important, is you have to have the right mindset to think, this is right for me, and I can go into different organizations and help them through periods of change. So those are, if you like, it's a very quick snapshot, a quick understanding of what interim management is about, but hopefully it's given you enough to think, is this right for me? Or I'm not quite sure yet. I'd like to go and speak to my local partner and understand a little bit more. So hopefully you found that helpful. I think we will now move to the, hopefully you've all been putting questions, etc. In the chat, and we can move to a section of question time. So thank you for that.
Okay, Charles, thank you very much. You hear me properly?
Yes. Yeah.
Good. First of all, I think you made it very clear. It was really the way how to behave when you are interim manager, what type of profile you need to have, and I'm glad you really mentioned that. Most of the questions that came, I would say there are 3 types of questions. The first question is local contact. Very easy. Wim or all the people during the chat have received the link to the local partner. So it's important for you to go on our website and you will have the local partner when we have a local partners. In some countries, which are mostly South America, we have no local partners. So that's a thing that will come in the future. But we had one question referring to the US and Mexico, and I said to the person, refer to our US partner. So the second thing is basically, many questions were also raised. Is interim management a way to relocate? I would say very frankly, it's not the way to relocate, because you should be aware that we are in a very competitive market, and all the top executives worldwide are also in a very competitive market. So in other words, the IMW will not give you a job if you are Spanish and you want to relocate to Mexico. Don't think of that. It's on the other way. It will help us, or it will help the local partner to have somebody local which has the knowledge of either Spanish or whatever industry, etc., etc. The clients at the end think of that. At the end, the client are deciding. If they don't have a proper manager for a reasonable price, which is competent and available, they will not choose it. So our role is to give to our client and to provide to our clients the best manager for the best price, I would say. The best expertise, the best price, the best experience, the best profile, the best hard skill, and the best soft skill. So the role of an interim company like us and all the networks member, it's three: is to find clients, is to find you as manager, and is to take care of you when you are in assignment. And it's not to send a German person overseas to America. There he has to address either to the American partner if he wants to relocate, because think that the company will not hire a German manager for America because the price is dreadful. He will have to pay every weekend airplane ticket. He will have to pay the assignment, the hotel, catering, etc., etc. So don't even think of that. You agree with it, Charles?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
As an example, I have today or tomorrow, next week, sorry, an assignment starting for a French company in Australia. Of course, I don't send a French to Australia. We have asked to our local partner to find it's a CFO, and he will start because he's Australian. He's knowing the industry. He knows the difference in between Melbourne and Sydney, and or Coolangatta, whatever. So let's be realistic. We are not placing people all over the world for relocation. It's not our purpose. Then it answers the question of fees. Very clearly, the fees you will get, either being an employee or direct from the company, either being an employee from Charles' company, either being an employee for the French company, the fees you will get are linked to the price of the market. The price of the market in Romania are very different from the price of market in Europe or in UK. Again, public sector has not the same price than private sector in high technology, whatever. So basically, our job is to help you to think what's your good price positioning for the good job and for the assignment. You have not the same prices in a company which has invoicing 4 billions than a company which is doing 10 million euro turnover or 10 million pounds. So very different question, very different market. The fees are also linked to, of course, the duration. Think that an average duration, as Charles said, is 7 months. It's all over Europe and all over the world, the same criteria. The average, you never work half-time. You always, 99% of our assignment are full-time, 5 days a week during 7 months. So it's not a job that you can do part-time, and it's not a job that you can do when you have another assignment running beside. There are, of course, some exceptions, but it's 7 months, 5 days a week in your country. And the prices will be according to what are the ratio of the country. How do we select candidates? As you understood very clearly, we select candidates in between hard skill and soft skills. Very obvious. When you come from the industrial sector is very different from banking. And being a CFO in banking is quite different than from being a CFO in a heavy industry. So again, it's linked to the sector, it's linked to where you are, what you need as quality. Finally, I think that's what Charles said, and I re-insist on that, is transparency, honesty. We don't address to candidates that are 35 years old. We address to experienced candidates which have an average experience of 25 years. when you have 25 years, 30 years of experience, you know what's the market, you know what's the competitors, you know the real life. So we are not here, and I will say it, say it in English, not properly. We are not here to bullshit you. Very important. We are very transparent. We love our candidate. We have interest that candidate finds a proper assignment. We have no interest that the candidate finds an assignment and leaves after 2 weeks or 1 week. Why? Because we are paid if the assignment is successful and if the assignment lasts. It's the same difficulty for us to have an assignment that lasts 1 week or 11 months. So think of that. We are partners. And it's very funny. It's very different from headhunting. Headhunting, you try to sell the project to a manager. Here, we don't sell the project to a manager. That's the manager that sells himself to the client. And at the end of the day, the client chooses. And the client can always not decide to go interim management. Very simple. If you are not the perfect profile for the perfect price with the perfect experience, you will not fit in and the client will not choose you. And he will say to us, I don't choose a manager because I do another way and I go the other way around. I will go intern or I will cancel the assignment or the request. And that's very interesting because that makes us very transparent and very honest. It's quite interesting. I am more than 60 years old. Charles is not far, is a very young guy, is 50, 51, whatever. But we are transparent with our people. It's fun. That's why we love our job. And sometimes we'll tell you, it's not easy because your resume should not be on 10 pages. It's being transparent. Your resume must be on 2 pages. Very simple so that we understand. You don't need to tell me that you are the best in the world. I don't request the best in the world. I request somebody which is conscious about his wealth, his knowledge, his hard skill, and his soft skill. And if he is honest with himself, he will be honest with us. And if he is honest with us, we will be honest with the client. And the client will tell us, fine, you are honest. And at the end of the day, we are a lot in this type of relation, which is very nice. In France, we have currently 100 people working for NIM. We call them every week. And they tell us, oh, look, I have a difficulty with that or with that. Our role is to coach people. That's very important for you to understand that. Okay? And as Charles mentioned, we don't complain if you submit your resume to other competitors. It's fine for me. And in many cases in France, I say, look, we are 5 important companies, go to them. I speak with my competitors, and sometimes I speak with a competitor that has placed one manager, and I call him, how was it? Was it a good guy? Yes, I have the interest that you are a good guy, that you do properly your assignment. Very, very important to understand that. Yeah. Be with us very transparent. You can tell me, I cannot go there because I have my son, which is going to university, whatever here. I need 1 or 2 weeks. The only question we will always raise to you is, are you immediately available? If you tell me I'm available in 6 months, I will say, great, you have a good profile, but let's talk again in 6 months. Don't hesitate to update us when you have an assignment starting. Don't hesitate to, but always go to the local partner. I will not take care of the Italian managers. Maurizio online will take care. My friend my Dutch friend will take care of the Dutch candidate. Charles will take care of the UK candidates. Yeah. All right. So again, transparency, simple. Don't be surprised if we don't answer you directly because at the end of the day, we're answering to requests of clients. Yeah. We don't do push CVs. We are not a headhunter that will try to place you. If the client has a request, he will call us, and then we will call you, and we will ask the first question, are you available? You agree with that, Charles?
I think that's a really important point, actually, is that we are essentially working for our clients. We are not taking your CVs and sort of putting them into the market and hoping a client will take them. So we, in that way, although it might sound harsh, but we are not working on your behalf. We are always working on the behalf of the client and then working with you as an interim management community to find the best person to fit the requirements of that client. And I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah.
But as Gregoire said, keep us informed. I always say, if we've had an introductory meeting, and we've then not spoken for maybe 6 or 8 weeks, just drop a line. It's not that we've forgotten about you. It probably just means we've not had an assignment that matches your skill set. But do keep in touch. It's always a very good idea to say, oh well, hi Gregoire, hi Charles. I've just landed an interim assignment. I'm going to be off the market for 6 months. I just wanted to update you and let you know. Oh, fantastic. What are you going to be doing? Oh, that sounds really interesting. Let's have a catch up when you've finished. I'd like to know how you got on in that. And it starts to build our understanding of what you're capable of, so that when we're speaking to our clients and they have a similar requirement, we can go, yes, I remember that interim manager who did a very similar role recently. They might be available now to do a new one.
Yes, and as Charles said, think of the key is your local partner. I see Ricardo Boggiani on the line. Okay, he will perhaps ask me to have contact on LinkedIn. Visibly, Ricardo, you're Italian. Your contact should be Italy. Your contact should be Maurizio. For Charles, because I cannot take care of your problematic. I don't know if you live in Roma, Palermo, Sicilia, whatever. I cannot take care of that. Okay. Very important to understand you have a local partner. And if the local partner thinks that you might be interesting for whatever job for a French company in Italy, Maurizio will contact you. All right. That's really the way we function. And then you have some exception. Maybe one Italian is willing to relocate.
Gregoire, you're on mute.
Yes, and so really important. Your contact is your local partner, which is your speaking partner in Italian for Italy, etc., etc. With very few exceptions. Sometimes, but very, very seldom, I'm receiving a resume for an Italian person, but it should be that this Italian person has lived in France, speaks French, is current with French regulation, etc., etc. All right? Very important to understand that for everybody. All right? Let's check if you have 1 or 2 questions that we didn't cover. Let's give us a few minutes. I'm checking the question. I think that Wim has sent you all the details. And again, go on the website with all the contacts. All right? You should also, you can easily subscribe, I think, on the SMW web letters. Go on the you can send us requests if you want to get letters, infos, send them to Wim. All right, I'm checking if there are some questions.
I've picked up a couple of questions. So
yes.
One is, for example, sales, business development, is that utilized as interim management? Yes, it is. It tends to be, again, strategic. So in sales and business development, it will generally be at director level where somebody is being brought in to affect a new strategy of sales or business development, or reorganize the sales business development function within that organization to be better than it is currently. It's rare that a business development person is brought in on an interim basis to go and actually sell for the company. It tends to be much more strategic when we look at that. And another question was around, I had mentioned that you need to be an expert, in your area in terms of what you bring to the market. And the question was, is there any sort of wiggle room? Is there any movement in that? And there is, to an extent. So you can't, if there's a role and 70% of it you can't do or you haven't done, then no. If it's the other way around, 70 to 80% at least of that role you have done before, And there are just a couple of little things that are in addition, but it is very clear that you have the intellect, the experience, the capability to pick things up quickly. Then if you are right for the role, then that's good. And I think the thing that maybe I didn't touch on was actually the soft side of your fit. So cultural fit into an organization and your ability to fit in from a people perspective is also really, really important. If you tend to be somebody that works extremely focused, you drive very hard on transformation programs, for example, and are less of a people person, and it requires somebody with more sensitive skill sets, then maybe you're not the right person for that role. So again, that cultural fit piece is actually also really important, because again, like I said in the presentation, you are going to need to use the people already in that business to help you transform or take on whatever assignment deliverables and requirements there are. You're not going in there with a team that you bring in. You are, and it might be that you've got 5 people that are helping you deliver this assignment who work in the business, but the first person you have 100% of their time. The second person you have 50% of their time. The third person you have 75%, 25%, etc. So you have to utilize the people to the best capability that they've got for the resource allocation that you have. So it's just, again, having that mindset and thinking what you need to do to deliver on the requirements. Hope that helps.
Okay. Again, thank you very much. I hope it helped a lot. Don't hesitate to revert to the website, to your local partner. It was quite general, but you really understand. We act global. You need to go local basis, because that will help answer to most of your questions. And we really appreciate to have so many countries all around the world. So fantastic. Thank you for your participation and attendance. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a lovely day.